What's going on, everyone? I hope you all had an amazing and relaxing weekend, but it's now about that time to get back into the market, and I'll tell you that's a good thing because we have a very exciting week lined up for us. Exactly 1 week ago today, Tom and I would not shut up about gold stocks and everything gold related, and over the past week, these things have just rocketed to the upside nonstop, so that was amazing to see, and I know a bunch of people did very, very well, but Tom, I have to tell you, I'm actually even more excited for this week because not only do we have earnings season coming back up again, but we also have inflation data set to release, and it's not just like any inflation report, so stick around for that. And then we also have an FOMC interest rate decision while volatility across the entire market is starting to increase. So we said this last week and we're going to say it again. It is a great time to be a trader. So Tom, I'm excited for this week. So let's get right into today's episode.
Yeah, the SPY did really good on Friday. You can see the nice green price action here is 73% of stocks in the S&P 500 were green. As you can see on the heat map, a lot of the big tech players that were down last week started really roaring back to life, like Meta, Microsoft, Nvidia. Tesla was in the red still, of course, which we're going to be talking about a little bit later. But Mike, we had a terrible week last week. We had the tsunami of problems in the market on Thursday, the geopolitical concerns, and then the stock market did not care, ran right back up, and it's actually hitting right off of a key trend line that I talked about a lot last week. So I'm going to be watching that area for a potential break. But I know that we've been talking about gold and gold-related stocks a ton over the past couple weeks, Mike, and they are continuing to blast off with the market here, 1.71% on Friday. It doesn't get much better than this, Mike. Last Sunday, we talked about gold quite a bit, and I'd say that was one of the best weeks for gold in a while.
Seriously, and we've been hitting on this for a couple weeks or a couple months now at least, so it's awesome to see a move like this, and while I love to see this sort of price action, I have to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a little bit of a pullback. We had an amazing call on gold, and while it's awesome to see, at the same time, it's not unrealistic to see pullbacks sometimes, so I wouldn't be too surprised if we saw a pullback pretty soon, but one thing that we just have to talk about is the inflation report coming out for this week. On Wednesday, we have a loaded schedule with inflation data coming out 1 hour before the market opens. And what's especially interesting about this is that the inflation rate year over year data, you can say, previously came in at 3.2%, but it is actually expected to go up to 3.4% for this next reading. So that's never a good sign. And it's surely not what the Federal Reserve wants to see. And the only scary thing here, Tom, is while it's expected to rise a little bit to, let's say, 3.4%, if it comes in hot at, let's say, 3.5 or 3.6%, things can get nasty very quickly for the market.
Yeah, they definitely can. And, part of the reason the market was dropping last week, remember we talked about Kashkari, and he really talked about inflation being one of the big factors. He said if it continues to stay stagnant or continues to rise back up slightly, that the Federal Reserve might look at no rate cuts, right? And we talked about that a lot last week. And look at the interest rate cut probabilities right here. For June, they're actually now pricing in a pause here. Now, this could all change depending on how the data comes out this week, but we talked about this number potentially flipping to pause, and it was previously at cut. So that's a pretty big statement there, Mike, and I don't know, are they just going to keep pushing this out further and further and further until the inflation does really start coming down? That's what we'll have to see, but it's definitely scary when you hear these terms like the rate cut switch to a pause now. Like that's definitely a big sign, and I know that the Fed members have been increasingly scaling back their talks about cuts, just like Kashkari and a couple others even.
Yeah, the Fed's just slow playing everyone. When the year first started, the Fed was saying, it was expected that there would be 5 rate cuts, and right now it's only expected to have 3 rate cuts for the entire year, with the soonest one being at the end of July at this point. So it's a pretty big shift. The Fed has definitely been slow playing everyone all year long, and we're about to find out if there's going to be any rate cuts at all as the months go on. But very interesting nonetheless. And then, Tom, we also have a FOMC minutes report on Wednesday as well.
Yeah, we do. At 2 p.m. Eastern time, there will be that FOMC minutes report. Now, keep in mind, this is not an FOMC meeting. It's more of like a recap of exactly what they said at the last meeting. So you can get some insights on that. I've seen the market make some pretty big moves there, so definitely be ready for that. There's even some PPI data Thursday and consumer sentiment on Friday, too. And then, Mike, we might as well cover the earnings while we're talking about the big plays or the big events for the week. Looking at the earnings, Tuesday, we have Tilray before open. That's going to be a huge one. We've been talking about marijuana stocks a ton over the past couple months. And then on Friday, all the big banks report. JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, BlackRock, Citigroup, even Progressive and State Street there. Pretty big in their own sectors. But Mike, it's going to be a big week. You know, we're kicking off earnings season. We always say this, like the banks are really like what kind of kick it off. So we'll have a lot of fun earnings over the next couple months. That's for sure.
Yeah, you love to see it. And I have to go back to what you said with Tilray. Before open on Tuesday, they report earnings. This stock is up like 60% or so over the past couple of weeks. And other marijuana-related stocks like CGC and ACB have had some pretty serious runs as well, which is not too surprising, in my opinion, given that all of the positive recent developments for the marijuana industry, especially like in Germany, as well as the fact that it is just an election year in general, right? It kind of, brings some attention to the industry. So keep a close eye on TLRY on Tuesday. But another thing we just have to talk about right now, Tom, is what appears to be the never-ending disaster show of what's going on with Boeing. So fill us in on the new news.
Oh my gosh, Mike, it happens again. Boeing stock was down quite a bit last week, and we can see here on the article that apparently an engine part fell off during a Southwest flight takeoff. I read an engine cowl came off and struck the plane's wing or something along those lines. You can read it in the first paragraph right here. But Mike, it's just a never-ending, I'd say, bad stream of news for Boeing, right? We've been talking about this one a lot the past few weeks and couple months, and we can go out to a daily chart and just see how much weakness this stock has had. We've had that $200 support give out. It recently had lows down around 177, and I would not be surprised that when the market opens tomorrow that it might not gap down and end up more red. So just have it on the radar. It's been falling pretty good with this bad news lately, so figured we'd mention it again.
Yeah, and speaking of just interesting news in general, check out Tesla stock intraday on Friday. This thing started cratering out of nowhere as basically Reuters said that Tesla was scrapping its low-cost vehicle program. And then you can see out of nowhere the stock bounced higher as Elon Musk basically said, no, that's not true. You can just see this interesting chart right here. It's like news comes out, stock craters. Elon's like, not true at all. Stock comes back up. But the stock still had like a rough close on Friday, but it did come back in after hours, which is good to see. But, with Tesla and everything like that, you always have like news that's just kind of crazy sometimes.
Yeah, you do. And that recovery back up was actually really good in after hours. So I got to give it to Elon. At least he hit it pretty quickly and, people started coming back in. But it's always crazy how much influence the media can have. And, people out there are kind of contemplating that they might be targeting Elon. Elon's not a big fan of a lot of the bigger media companies, obviously. He's been kind of stealing a lot of their market share with Twitter, I believe. So I don't know, Mike. Are they trying to maybe pinpoint Elon a little bit? They just might be.
Yeah, we'll see. And then speaking of just crazy news, I came across this weekend. I figured why not show it? So we all know ticker symbol BABA. It's Alibaba. They're a pretty big stock over there in China. And I saw this news that says Alibaba is going to test rocket parcel delivery service in a lofty attempt to ship goods anywhere in the world within an hour. So this is pretty crazy. And even if this were to be a thing, like how much would this cost to get like delivery from China on a rocket like in an hour? Like can't even imagine that. And I'd also like to really hope that the rockets are calibrated properly to make sure there's no misses to their destination. But talk about some crazy news.
Oh my gosh, I thought it was a joke at first. I see apparently somebody in here said that, many great endeavors seem like a joke at first, but I'll say this, Mike, this one definitely seems like a bit of a stretch. Could you imagine? They don't even really a lot of places don't even allow the drones to deliver right now. I know Amazon's been like working on these drones and trying to get them going, and looks like they are getting them going, at least a little bit. But as we know, it's kind of something that with a rocket, I mean, that's going to scare a lot of people. And then, these are Chinese rockets too on top of it. Like, I don't know, Mike. Maybe those weather balloons were coming over here to plot out where these rockets are going.
Oh, boy. Yeah, I mean, is that what the future is going to look like? We just see, like, rockets flying across the Earth to deliver packages in under an hour from anywhere on Earth to another point? Like, it's kind of crazy, but I guess keep a close eye on Bob over the next couple of years to see if they can make any improvements with this. But that is the stock market information recap of the day. So let's get right into the good stuff for the video, Tom, which are some setups for tomorrow. A stock I'm watching very closely right now is still GDX. This is a ETF that follows a bunch of gold mining stocks. As we talked about earlier in the video, we've been hitting on these stocks for a long time. We couldn't have asked for them to move in a better way, and I'm still bullish on them going forward. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a little bit of a pullback, but there's just so much strength in this area of the market right now. So I'm still bullish on GDX going forward, but I'm going to say, like, I'm not all too surprised. I'm not going to be too surprised if it does pull back a little bit. GDX and gold and precious metals related stocks and companies move a lot on like a weekly and monthly basis. They're not like super crazy on like a day-to-day basis. Like, for example, you're not going to see a gold mining company up 12% in a day like you might with some tech stock, but it's not all that crazy to see it up a lot over the course of multiple weeks or so.
Yeah, exactly. And gold has just been so awesome lately. And I'm glad that you kind of mentioned the pullback because, we've been talking a lot about other companies like SMCI and others, how they were getting way too overextended too. And you just have to be realistic, guys. Like, as much as we love gold, the charts are getting a little high. But hey, I'm still watching them, Mike. Maybe they'll continue. They did very well in After Hours Friday. So gotta love it. And yeah, we've been hitting on these ones a lot. With my Vex play, I'm going with Apple to the downside here. I'm still watching that big 168, 167 support on the book map. If Apple ends up pulling back and down under this area this week, that could be a great point to start to sell the stock down at. Just look at the stack of buyers there at 168 and 167. Like, if that area really does give out, I think there could be a lot more selling. And we saw the SPY start to really sell off on Thursday last week, and then it pulled back Friday, but it's actually kind of rejecting off the trend line I talked about. So if we stay under that trend and Apple starts to break support, definitely watch puts to the downside.
Sounds good. And speaking of puts, I am also looking at SMCI. Again, we hit on this one a decent amount last week in a bearish way, and it started to move lower. It's back below the $1,000 level, which is great to see. And I think 900 and then 850 are the next stops with this one. Again, I am watching it to the downside. It is one of the big chip-related stocks that has just rocketed up over the past year, and it is slowly starting to lose some of its hype and momentum. The most important thing with a stock like this one is just to see that consistent pressure on that low of day. I want to see weakness, and I want to see meaningful moves to the downside. If we're seeing that, I'm bearish on the stock. If the stock is holding up in a strong way and trying to move higher, I'm not going to try and fight that, giant momentum-filled uptrend, right? I want to see the stock like weakening and breaking lower. That's what will make a downside setup like this one, worth the risk, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's looking pretty good here in the short term. Like, there's definitely a nice resistance overhead. It's been falling back under 1,000, so I'll keep it on the radar, Mike. I am actually pretty bearish on this one as well. I kind of wish I could have called it out, actually. But with my next play, I'm going with Boeing also to the downside. Ticker symbol BA. There's a good support around 182.50 in the short term. Watch 180 after this, but I'm definitely looking at more bearishness here, especially with that bad news that came out with the engine problem. But of course, just be careful with Boeing. It can be a little wild, but we need to see that good move down and then just a good continuation. So watch it to the downside. It has bad news, and we've seen good volume and good moves down off that type of news recently too.
Sounds great. All right, well, it's now about that time for today's momentum plays. And with the first one, we have ticker symbol ANF, which is Abercrombie and Fitch. And this stock has been ripping to the upside over the past couple of years. It is up like between 500 and 600%, depending on where you start. But the stock is starting to pull back a little bit. It had a very strong resistance at $140 a share. That acted as like a brick wall for this stock. And since that point, it has been making lower highs, initially at 140, then right around like 139, and then again right around 134. So that's not necessarily a good sign. At the same time, it's getting close to support right around 120 with like a secondary support at 115. So I am looking at this one to the downside, and similar to SMCI, the more like bearish price action you see with this one, the better. But what's the level to watch?
Yeah, so I'm going to really watch this 119, 120 support for tomorrow. You can see that it's like about like a $1 to 50 cent gap between like 119 to 120 right there. If we do break that, then I'm going to watch for a descent more towards like 115, 114. So really, I think 120 is the big support there from last week. You can see there's a bit of a double bottom.
Sounds great. All right, with the next one, we have SMH also to the downside.
Yeah, how could we not have this one on here, right? With that crazy move on Thursday, especially if it breaks under 220, then go ahead and look at puts.
Sounds great. And then with the last one, we have NEM, which is a gold miner for both directions.
Yeah, and that price action Friday was insane, but go ahead and make them break out above $40. It was up 5%. That's pretty big. So make it break above 40. Now, if it does start pulling back and it gets under 38.50, just under this wick from the intraday move down right there, then go ahead and look at puts to the downside. But Mike, that was some of the hottest price action I've ever seen out of a gold miner.
Yeah, I mean, on an intraday basis, you can't really ask for much more. So good stuff there. We have the upside level for calls and the downside level for puts with NEM. Don't forget about the downside level with SMH and then the downside level with ANF. These three stocks are on watch for potential day trades if and only if they break through the levels Tom listed. And, the goal with a trade like this is to see a break through the level and then a continuation in that direction. The more pressure it puts on the, you could say, high/low of day, the better. And the more time it just spends moving in the desired direction, the better the setup reflexively becomes. So keep a close eye on these three stocks for tomorrow. But let's also dive deep into today's big money trade of the day. And we are looking at ticker symbol WBA. On Friday, the big money put around $309,000 into the WBA $12.50 strike call options that expire way out in January of 2026. So looking at WBA, we all know what Walgreens is, and this stock has been getting pummeled over the past couple of years. It is currently down 80% from its all-time high, which makes it currently in its worst drawdown in this stock's history, with the second closest drawdown being a 75% drawdown from 1974. So clearly the stock is beaten down quite a bit. Walgreens, it's not like the craziest, most hyped up stock ever, but looking at these call options, they are deep in the money. They have a lot of time. So I really like the risk reward with this one, but I can't stress this enough. This is definitely more of a longer term play.
It really is. It goes all the way out to 2026. And keep in mind, it's also the 12.5 calls. They're in the money with that time for a reason right now. Walgreens is falling down quite a bit at the moment. And whenever we look at the chart, Mike, we've actually plotted this in the past, this major support that it's been on. And that support's starting to give out a little bit. So I think that they picked a good strike like 12.50 for a reason, and that much time for a reason, because they're going to set this and forget it, right? It's going to be something that you have to give it time, and it's one of those big money plays that, in my opinion, you just got to set it and forget it with this one, because it's just so deep in the money, and you just have to give it that time. Even in the short term, though, I would say, like, if it does start to come up off support, then that could be a good move there, maybe back up short term, but I don't know. I bet they're going to hold for quite a while.
No doubt about that. So keep a close eye on this one going forward. It's not like your usual big money play, but it is still interesting nonetheless. It's pretty rare to see a stock like Walgreens with an 80% drawdown, and it's significant when the next closest drawdown happened in 1974. So that's pretty crazy. So keep a close eye on this one going forward. But Tom, I'll tell you, I really am excited for this week between the inflation data, between the FOMC interest rate decision, between the fact that earnings season's coming back up, and also the fact that the volatility index is rising pretty quickly, and we're seeing moves in both directions across many different areas of the market, and even starting seeing some pretty significant movement with commodities between gold and oil. There's a lot of exciting things going on in the market right now, and I'm very excited to see all of the opportunities that happen in April.
Yeah, me too, Mike. It's going to be a huge month here. And, keep watching those percentages this week, like on the Fed Watch tool with CME. It's pretty awesome. Like you can see here right now, they're still pricing in that pause for June. But as we start to see the data come in this week, it might flip-flop these numbers a little bit. And we'll keep you guys updated here on the channel too. But it's going to be a big week, Mike. That inflation data is definitely number one on my list, I'd say, this week. There's even some more events later in the week with CGC as well, with like their shareholder vote and stuff, so that could be pretty interesting as the week goes. Don't forget about Tilray earnings on Tuesday too. The MJ sector's been almost as hot as gold, Mike. I'll say, on a percentage basis, it has been, but I don't know. Gold is those intraday moves have been pretty good.
No doubt about that. And if you guys are new to the channel, consider demolishing that subscribe button to get our videos recommended to you more often. We post all the time in every single video. We cover everything you need to know about the market when in terms of news, important charts, earnings, economic events. We cover multi-million-dollar big money plays, interesting setups in general, and we get all of this done in 20 to 25 minutes or less, most of the time at least. So join the Stocked Up crew, demolish that subscribe button, and if you haven't already, check out the Stocked Up trading floor. We're running a very big coupon with coupon code Big Money. It saves a lot with the yearly plan. You get full access to our army of trading bots. You can chat with Tom and myself all day long, join our live events, access the big money plays every single day before they're posted, among many other things. And while we're in the Discord, let's give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, Ski, who did a great job with SM Bot on Friday. So awesome job there. Keep up the great work. I think we're set for an amazing week. Besides that, thank you all so much for watching, and let's crush it this week.